I'm very excited to be here and have the opportunity to present on my master's thesis research that I'm doing back at the University of Calgary. And we're looking at the ways that we can use reality capture technologies to mediate the impacts of the relocation of the Perrenoud Homestead Provincial Historic Resource Site. So it comes as no surprise to anybody in this room, I'm sure, when I say that heritage sites across the world are being put at risk by various environmental, social, and political factors. And while there are many methods to managing this risk, such as mitigation or restoration, what I'm looking at in my thesis is the use of relocation as a heritage preservation tool. So in this sense, when I talk about relocation, it most simply means the act of bringing a site from an area of high risk to somewhere with either less risk or easier access to implement other management strategies. So you can do this in two ways when you're looking at a built structure. You can either move the entirety of the structure at once, or you can disassemble it, move the pieces, and reassemble it elsewhere. No matter the method that you choose, there are two broad issues that we have to consider when we're relocating a heritage structure. So the first of these is the structural integrity of the structure. This is fairly intuitive. When you're moving an entire building or you're taking it apart, this is going to have effects on the physical fabric of that heritage resource. And the other thing that we're looking at is a term called commemorative integrity, which was coined by Gordon Bennett in 1994, and it refers to the health and wholeness of the site beyond just that physical structure. So it's considering things like the context of the site and the surroundings of it. And this is important because according to the Bird Charter produced by the International Council on Monuments, relocating a heritage site should only be done when it is the last feasible option to ensure its survival. And the reason for this is because that area where that heritage site is located, its cultural surroundings, are part of the significance of its history and its heritage value. So when you move it to a new place, you're necessarily removing it from this associated cultural context. So what I'm looking at is how we can use digital methods to address these issues. And I'm sure many of you already have ideas in your mind when I put this question up here, but I will get back to that in a bit. First, I want to give you some context of where we're working. So our research group is based out of Alberta, Canada. We're the second province in from the West Coast. And we've been working at a variety of sites throughout the province. And we digitally capture and record a lot of these at-risk sites. So this map just shows a distribution of some of the sites that we've been working at. You notice that they're all pretty clustered in that southwest quadrant. Part of this is because that's where we've been working, and part of it is just simply because that's where most of the population is. Canada is huge, and most of us live in the south where it's slightly warmer. So a little bit more specifically, the site that I'm looking at is located here. It's about a 45-minute drive outside of the city of Calgary, which is where our research is based. And especially for Canadian standards, that is so close by. It's amazing. Whenever I need to capture more data or read some of the informational panels about my site, it's a pretty quick drive up. So the site I'm talking about is called the Perrenoud Homestead, and it was officially designated as a provincial historic resource in 1992. It is composed of two residences situated on 4.5 hectares of land. The first of these is an 1890s log farmhouse with a 1902 extension. Those of you who I assume many of you work in Europe, feel free to laugh at those dates. My Airbnb here predates my heritage site by many years. But keep in mind that this area was only settled by Europeans in about the 1880s, so having a site, a European structure that's this old is actually quite significant. So throughout this section and my work, I refer to the homestead in its two components. So this is what I'm talking about when I refer to that 1890s original portion. And this is that 1902 extension. So that just gives you a little bit more context as I use these terms throughout my presentation. Also on the site, there is a 1910 two-story farmhouse that replaced the homestead as the original, or as the primary residence on the property when it was constructed. And then there are also a variety of outbuildings and machinery scattered around the property, including granaries, a sawmill, and a cattle chute. So the heritage value of the Perrenoud Homestead is in the links it has to the establishment of those early ranching operations in Alberta in the 1880s and 1890s. The land on which the homestead is located was part of a massive grazing lease granted by the Government of Canada in the 1880s to encourage settlers to come to that area. One of these settlers was Charles Perrenoud. He was born in France in 1863 and originally trained as a jeweler. And he came to Western Canada in 1886 to set up a ranching operation. He was actually quite successful in his venture and eventually amassed a herd of almost 2,000 saddle and work horses of various breeds. However, in recent years, the homestead has started to collapse. Now, this collapse is most noticeable in that 1902 extension where most of the walls and roof have slumped in on the structure. And while still standing, the original portion exhibits what I like to refer to as a distinct lean, and it has been braced with various wooden beams along its northern wall. So due to the state of the structure and that it was owned by the Alberta government, it was deemed unsafe and unfeasible to restore on site. So it's scheduled to be dismantled in July of 2017 by a subset of our government called Alberta Culture and Tourism. And the goal in dismantling this heritage site was to take it apart in pieces, tag the location of where those pieces came from on the homestead, and then the original material will be used when the structure is rebuilt sometime in the future. So our role on this project was to provide documentation of the site before any work was done, as well as during the disassembly of the homestead. And to do this, we used two different types of reality capture technology. The first thing that we did was drone documentation. We did this using a DJI Phantom 4 drone, and we processed our images together using Pix4D software. So for the original project, this disassembly project, due to the timeline, we only had time to go out and document the site with drone footage before any of the work was done. But since that initial project, we have revisited the site to produce orthomosaics, both with our DJI Phantom 4 drone, and more recently, we went out last week with our SenseFly EV drone. And we also have plans to return to the site later this summer to produce a photogrammetric model of that 1910 farmhouse using a combination of drone footage and digital SLR photography. So this is our drone model here. We flew the drone in an automated grid 30 meters above ground level with a 70-degree camera angle for 90% overlap. This model is made out of 699 calibrated images and has a ground sampling distance of 2.26 centimeters. So the second thing that we did on site was document it using terrestrial laser scanning. And for this, we used our ZNF 5010X scanner, and we documented the site both on that initial day before any work was done, as well as on 4 days during the disassembly process. For this, we used paddle targets, which was perhaps a mistake because this area is actually quite windy, and a few of my targets blew over on some of the days that we were working, which made registering my data very fun. And all of our initial registration that we do is done in the ZNF laser control program. And then I do all of my cleanup in Autodesk Recap. And when they still had their scan to mesh service, we use that to produce our 3D models as well. So this is a 3D model of the homestead for this initial day. All of my standard deviations on my registration are below 8 millimeters. So for the work we're doing, that's fantastic. There are some inclusion issues in the irregular portions of the structure, especially in that collapse. But overall, we're really happy with how that model turned out. And so for our terrestrial laser scanning, we did document it on that first day, as well as during those 4 additional days during the disassembly process. And these are our resulting point clouds from each day of scanning at the site. For each day, we used between 8 and 11 scanning locations positioned to obtain the most comprehensive data set. And then on our third day of scanning, we added an additional 3 scanning locations to capture the interior of the structure. So now that I have what is a massive amount of data that I spend a lot of time waiting for our lab computer to load, what do we do with it? So I bring you back to this question about how we can use digital methods to address these issues with relocation. And this is not a comprehensive list of ways that we can integrate these methods. It's just some of the major things that our research group is focusing on back at the University of Calgary. And for my work, I'm focusing on these 3 topics. So I'll talk briefly about the first 2 and then a little bit more about increasing access to the site. So the first thing that we're doing is monitoring the stability of the structure. And for this, we're using change detection analysis, the feature of the open source program Cloud Compare. So what this does is it takes 2-point clouds from different scanning dates, and essentially it's looking at the change between each point in that point cloud from scan to scan to see how much change has occurred. So here you can see my results from day 1 compared to day 5. If it's not clear, this is the original part of the homestead, this is the extension, and again, this is the original part of the homestead, and this is where the extension was. So blue on these scans indicates little or no change, going up the color ramp through green, yellow, and red. And surprisingly, this is telling us that the extension was taken off and that the roof was taken off. So we already know what change has happened here. And the reason why I'm not talking about these results more in depth is because I'm still in the process of reviewing the day-by-day changes. So this is just an illustration of what the tool can show us. And we're really excited because it'll help us look at not only where change is occurring, but how much change, and we can see when change is occurring during the disassembly of the structure. This will be really helpful in letting us analyze the structural changes that happen to various parts of the site through the dismantling process, and it'll give us insights as to which material we should or shouldn't be using when we rebuild the homestead in the future. So the second thing that we've been talking about is back to this issue of commemorative integrity. And so we wanted to make sure that we captured not only the original state of the homestead before any work was done, but also some of the context of the site. This is especially important because we don't know currently if the site is going to be rebuilt on its original location. So using our TLS model and our drone models, combined with either virtual reality, augmented reality, or just online apps, if the homestead is relocated from its original site, we can use those tools to bring some of that original context back to where the homestead has been moved to, or alternatively, we can use them to show people at the physical original site what the homestead would have looked like before it was removed. And finally, a big part of the research that we're doing now is using this data to increase access to the site during its relocation process. This is especially important at the Perrenoud Homestead because this is what the site looked like when we first visited it in June of 2017. And this is what the site looks like now. The outline of the homestead has been outlined in gravel and log markers, and it's created sort of a weird void on the site. So, to increase accessibility while it's no longer there, we have included the data collected at the Perrenoud Homestead with the other data that we've been collecting from heritage sites on our Digitally Preserving Alberta's Diverse Cultural Heritage online archive. And the overall aim of this archive is to create a central repository of Alberta heritage information, as none currently exist. So on the Perrenoud Homestead page, along with the other pages that we have in our archive, you can find an interactive 3D model of our TLS data. You can find a write-up about the background of the site, a gallery containing historic and modern photographs, a write-up about our capture techniques, and also a full set of open source downloadable LAS data. For the Perrenoud Homestead, this is currently just for that first day that we scan the site, but when I'm done my work, we're actually going to be uploading these scans from each day that we took during the disassembly process. While the current digital version of the Perrenoud Homestead is removed from the rest of the buildings at the physical site, this nevertheless means that it remains accessible while the actual homestead is in storage. And the online version of the site actually contains a greater wealth of educational and interpretive information than the physical site did, but it also increases the accessibility to the homestead more dramatically than having it just located in that first original physical place. Not only does a webpage allow visitors to the Perrenoud Homestead 24 hours a day, every day of the year, the geographical reach of a website is almost limitless. So now Albertans, Canadians, and those from other countries who may not have the means of easily traveling to the site can go online and view and learn about it. So consequently, digitally capturing heritage sites, especially those slated for relocation, is a useful way of ensuring that they remain accessible to not only the public, but also heritage managers through the relocation process. So just a few recap concluding remarks. Our drone photogrammetry and TLS provided expedient documentation of the original location and stayed at the Perrenoud Homestead on a project that had really tight deadlines due to the safety concerns about the condition of the site. Through change detection analysis, we are able to assess the structural integrity of the site through the disassembly process, gaining insights not only as to how much change is occurring, but also when and where that change is occurring. And finally, the resulting models shared through the archive now allow access to this heritage resource that would have otherwise been impossible. Without digital capture, the Perrenoud Homestead would have been inaccessible while it remains in storage. Now interactive 3D models, historic and modern photographs, and associated information are all contained in a central online repository that is digitally accessible by anyone at any time. And I'd just like to thank everybody who helped me on this project, provided funding resources, and everybody at this conference who helped put it on and host us here today. Thanks for your attention.
Shall I upload the presentation here or at the main desk?
Again, please.
Shall I upload the presentation here or at
Here.
the main desk? Okay,
Yes,
I will
here.
put it here. There's too many people, so where do I put it? Thanks.
Ja nic nie wiem.
Dokładnie.
No ładnie.
ja nie pamiętam, czy to było, ile to jest espresso.
No to jest. Finished this one? Okay.
Tylko mi się spieszy.
I'm gonna go back here because then I can write anything. Yeah. We were starting with Jacob.
But yes, you have the everything that's on the road as well. So
We're gonna get whoever's getting set up.
are all the things on here? Do you know if all the talks are on here?
Excuse.
Okay. Ready? Nope.
Or maybe this is it.
Okay.
So please write.
Okay. Yeah, clearly.
I
I'm like, that is way
I-
too
I
fancy.
could probably channel Como and do the presentation, but
That's very bizarre. I'm just seeing if any of these from a couple days ago are our people. You are not Jacob. You are
I'm coming.
okay. Excellent.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. I just want to make sure that we have.
who you are, so you know.
I want to make sure we have the right people.
Yeah, we can't ask you to change your identity.
We could. We could ask you.
Yeah.
Wait,
But I'd recommend you say no.
Okay, so in theory we are looking for
We have a
Oh, we are looking for Jacob.
yeah.
But
or-
Jacob is from my team.
Ah, okay, all right.
They're coming from this team
Okay,
and
so you
I.
can present.
Hi.
So you're our
I'm looking
first-
for a
Yes.
first speaker.
yeah, me too.
Sorry? Our first speaker is here.
Is here.
Ah.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Słuchajcie, po podobnej waszej prezentacji.
Yes,
Yeah,
you are.
Fajnie, tutaj będę.
Ah.
PDF, yeah, the one.
Actually, I heard there's some problem with your presentation.
No, it's not my presentation. I was just trying to make sure everything was set up because I was told yesterday by James that I was supposed to chair this. So,
Ah, okay.
voila.
Okay, okay.
Bye, Lucas.
Bye bye.
Thank you. All right.
In which case we should be getting going, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Has your presentation been loaded?
Yes, I have it. It's on the format, and I saw it
Great.
just
Excellent.
a moment ago.
Cool. Perfect.
Do you want to get back into this?
Yeah,
Can you help him get his presentation?
Tak, one będą tutaj.
Tutaj?
Tak.
Dobra. O,
Daj telefon.
o, sorry, już daję.
Aha, that would explain why I'm looking for his name. All right, so I will give you the like 5-minute, 3-minute, 1-minute,
Okay, okay,
but we're starting late, so I won't
okay.
repeat to you.
Okay. Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for your attendance in such early hour. My name is Kamil Chromański and I would like to tell you a few words about process of data preparation for the virtual reality visualization of cultural heritage. So, oh, it's not working now. Okay. To get you the context, our main goal was to develop the visualization in a most realistic way. So we decided to use photogrammetric documentation in order to get photorealism effect. We want to achieve most immersive visualization, so we used virtual reality set as we thought it was the most immersive way to visualize object by computer. So we started cooperation with Museum of King Jan III Palace at Villanov. It's a palace from 17th century, built for King Jan and his wife. It's placed in Warsaw, in district Villanov. This museum have very rich data, GIS data about the objects in their chambers, and also the data, the photogrammetric data, like laser scans or images. And we decided to visualize 5 chambers, 3 chambers on the ground floor, 1 chamber on the first floor, and also 1 chamber on the second floor. On the ground floor, these are the chambers we are working with. So the first one, the central one, is so-called Beagle it's central hall of central chamber of palace. It's very representative. It have sculptures on the ceiling, very richly decorated. And the other halls, this one, it's the garden galleries. They are very long, very big, and also they have frescoes from the time when King Jan was living there. On the first floor, we have only one chamber. It's a so-called quiet room. It's a relatively small chamber, and it's called quiet because beneath there was a king chamber, so everybody have to be quiet there, so king not to be disturbed. And the last chamber, it's the Hall of Feasts. It's probably one of the biggest chambers in the palace, and it was designed to have feasts there. Okay, so going to some technical aspects, one of our biggest challenges was to develop this visualization with use of archived data, because there was no possibility to make our own measurements due to renovation works and tourist movement. So this data was from few measurement campaigns, and the quality of the data was varying. For example, for the Biko, we can see 52 photos, but most of the photos were the photos of ceiling, and there was only like 8 photos of the walls, with the coverage of about 10%. So it was very hard to generate 3D mesh from such data. So we tried a few approaches. At first, we tried the approach with generating the dense cloud in Agisoft Photoscan software, only from images. But as I was saying, some data was it was impossible to make it such a way. So as we had also the terrestrial laser scanning data, we used this data to generate the geometry, and we used photos to give it the color information. So speaking about our workflow, we started from data preparation. The algorithm in Agisoft Photoscan requires normal vectors to be computed from to each point of the cloud. So we computed these vectors with use of cloud compare software, and we tried few approaches about this subject. Then we combined this scanner data with images in Photoscan software and generated meshes along with textures. Another big challenge was to implement these meshes in game engine, which we used to make the visualization, final visualization. By the way, we are using Unreal Engine for game engine. So we had to adjust the level of details to make it work fluent. So here we can see original mesh generated with Photoscan in original spatial resolution. And here are our tries of decimating this mesh. So here we can see 24 million of polygons, and now 500,000 and less. As you can see, geometry is getting reduced and more inaccurate, but with use of texture, the change is not so big. So it's very good for visualization purposes. But speaking of some details, like this sculpture, we can see that also with textures it gets worse if we speak of visual thing. So we had to set apart some smaller objects. And now the comparison of the texture resolutions. I don't know if it can be seen here, but this is the finest resolution. The resolution is the GSD of the texture is the same as the GSD, or even better than the images GSD. So it's the most pretty texture we can achieve. But as you can see, the size of the texture is quite big. There is no influence on performance of visualization, but bigger textures, bigger visualization, it's the problem. And finally, we import all the data, all the meshes in game engine. We used Blender software to align it on proper places, so the user could visit these chambers like he would be like in the palace. And some thoughts about generalization of mesh and textures. Mesh is main performance factor. Mesh is main performance factor, so it has to be generalized to work to visualization work fluently, and it should be divided into segments so the details will not lose their accuracy. And about textures, textures should be GSD of the texture should be in the best way equal to the GSD of the images, and the texture have massive impact on the final visualization. So here you can see some effects of our work. As you can see, you can move freely through the. Oh, it's. I think you cannot see anything here, but you can trust me. You can move freely around the palace, and also get some information about frescoes and sculptures that are in there. And finally, some conclusions. Unreal Engine 4, this game engine, provides a comprehensive solution in the field of visualization of cultural heritage. It's very important to sustain stable frame rate of such visualization, because there is this effect called VR sickness, and if it's not working very fluent, it can make one just feeling sick. So it's important for the user. Use of VR system requires additional computing power. It's quite performance consuming, and also what is important here, and most important thing for tested computer, as you can see the specification there, we could have placed about 1.5 million of polygons before it gets blurry. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you very much, and if you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Can you speak a little bit to the importance and motivation of the work?
Can you repeat, please?
Can you speak to the importance of the work? Like, why does this matter?
Why does this matter? Okay, so our main goal was to, sustain cultural heritage in the visual way. Yeah, so it can be view from not from Palace but from other places, and to get this more, let's say, popular during the young and old people, we used some, let's say, popular technology. So it's quite nice for the younger people to get to know to the museum, to the chambers of the museum and the objects in museum. I think it may be more attractive than the standard way of visiting the museum for the young people.
You think that virtual reality is more attractive than actually visiting the museum?
Not really. I think it may be something. You cannot visit museum every time, yeah.
Right.
And these chambers, as I was saying, are two of them are not for visiting now.
Right.
So you can't visit them in any other way
Okay.
than through the visualization.
Okay.
Okay. Some other questions?
All right. Thank you very much. Is Peter here? Excellent.
Okay, is it visible, or maybe can we turn off these lights?
Yes, good.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm gonna tell you something about my little project about exploring early Neolithic materialized identity networks. Why am I interested in this? Well, I think there's quite a lot of data on early Neolithic cemeteries, and these data usually fall into two categories. The first category would be archaeological data or the data on the material, and the other category would be the biological data on the human remains in these graves. And usually these two categories are rather hard to connect, or my opinion is that most of the authors don't connect these two categories of the data like enough together. So I would like to try to make sense out of these two categories of data. An introduction. Early Neolithic in Central Europe is represented by the LBK, linear band ceramic culture. And these are the first farmers in Central Europe. And there is quite a lot of material they have in the cemeteries. And one of the important facts is that there are large cemeteries, and I'm working with 3 cemeteries, and these are Vedrovice in the Czech Republic, Nitra in Slovakia, and Klein-Hadersdorf in Austria. So what is my idea? My idea is that the object world in the Neolithic is larger than in the previous periods, and these objects allow people to express their individual identities, and the identity is reflected by the artifacts, but the burials are constructed by the community the people lived in. So the deposited artifacts reflect one's identity as it was perceived by the community. And on the other hand, there are these bioarchaeological data on the burials, and these data represent some sort of unintentional identity of the people. These represent the life ways of the people. And by the bioarchaeological data, I mean isotopic data and many different anthropological data on the skeletons. So my objective is to compare structures of different LBK cemeteries that represent different communities, and get insight into similarities between this material and biological identities, as I explained earlier. And in the end, maybe understand material representations of different roles individuals had in the communities. How do the burials look? Well, usually there's quite a lot of material in the burials. For example, pottery vessels, beads, spondylus shells. Okay, I don't see one here. Oh yeah, here, spondylus shell beads, and stone axes and adzes, and some latex, and so on. What are my methods? I'm using network analysis to explore this phenomenon, and I'm working with the dissimilarity of individual burials described by the attributes, and these attributes are the biological data and the archaeological or material data. And I start with a database of the burials and the attributes, as I said earlier, and I tried several methods of different distance metrics calculation. Previously, I was working with binary distance, but currently I switched to Gover distance that is useful for mixed data types because this method, this statistical method, we can count the distance from continuous, ordinal, and nominal variables. So it is ideal for this mixed data types. And the analysis is performed in R, and I'm using well-known packages, iGraph, Cluster, and Tidyverse packages. So what do the data look like? I have data on 3 Central European LBK symmetries, as I was saying earlier. And in general, there are 2 groups of variables, the anthropological or bioarchaeological data, for example, biological age, sex, and isotopic data representing the life ways and diets. And on the other hand, there is archaeological or material data on body and burial pit orientation, types and position of pottery vessels, groundstone tools, polystone tools, lithics, and so on. What are the problems with the data? Well, the data is very messy because of the excavation, because of the way it is published. There's a lot of missing data. That's because of the state of preservation and also state of the publication. And there are many dependent variables in the data. So for example, anthropological sex and anthropological age groups are interdependent variables. So there's necessary a lot of cleaning to get the data in the shape that would be suitable for the analysis. And obviously also like data on body orientation and pit orientation are interdependent. So this creates some problems that I'm trying to overcome, and I'm going to show you what that gives me. What is the data processing pipeline? Before, as I was saying, I was using binary matrix, but currently I'm using mixed data matrix. Then I compute the cover distance, and then I use the distance matrix to create edges in the network between the vertices, and to be able to create a network out of this data, I need to choose some maximum dissimilarity distance to form the edges. So this is one of the problems I'm thinking about, and yeah, these box plots show that these are like on the y-axis. There is the dissimilarity of the graves. So here is like these are completely similar, these are completely dissimilar, and there are 2 box plots, one for this biological data, another one for the archaeological data for each cemetery. And as you can see, these values differ quite a lot. So it's usually rather hard to choose suitable cutoff value to create the networks, because I was trying to choose some non-arbitrary value, for example lower quartiles, but anyway there were too many edges in the networks to get insight into the structure. One of my ideas was to use the geocoded positions of the individual graves, and I thought that it could reveal some underlying structures in the structure of the cemeteries. But as you can see, it's rather messy. This green network, this shows the biological data. This one shows the archaeological or material data. And red dots are females, blue dots are males, yellow dots are children. I'm not too inventive in selecting colors. As you can see, this is just mess. This doesn't tell me anything. So I stick to using network layout algorithms, and I'm using Fruchterman-Reingold algorithm. This is the same data, the same values, but layouted using the algorithm. And here with the biological data, we can see that there are some clusters that we were unable to see previously. So this is much more useful. But anyway, there's quite a lot of vertices that are disconnected from these networks. And this is a problem. So this is caused by the messiness of the data. But anyway, yeah, this looks sort of good. So I tried to combine these two networks into one to see the relationships between the material data and the biological data. But it looks like that the biological data that are represented by the green edges and the archaeological that are represented by the gray edges, they are almost disconnected. So the material data is in the middle of the clusters, and there are not many connections between the clusters themselves. So this is a problem, and I'm not sure what causes this. But as I was running some of my experiments, getting back to the previous network, well, I found out that these networks are behaving as a scale-free networks. So usually the new edges, the new vertices that would come in the network would connect to other vertices with high betweenness centralities or high degrees. So this causes some of the problems, but I'm not sure why is this doing it. It's really hard to interpret, or I need to think more in depth on this topic. These are another two symmetries, and again you see it's quite similar as the previous one. Again, there are clusters of the biological data and a cluster of material data, and there are not many connections in between them. Going towards interpretations, well, this is just the clustering is highlighted using I'm not sure which method. Well, I was hoping that maybe the structure would look better, and maybe that we can observe females, males, and children being in different clusters or something like that. But here we see that it's not the case. So I would need to go more in depth in this topic. But for example, here in Nitra, we see that most of the children are really clustered together, but usually males and females are just mixed together. So what does this mean? It means that there is not an obvious difference between the graves, between the biological and archaeological data in the graves. And this is the Vedrovitz symmetry, and this one looks the best so far, I think, because there is a clear cluster of children and two clusters of males and females, and these two clusters are caused by the huge difference in the biological data, and this difference is probably caused by the age groups, and the difference with kids is caused by also the age of the kids, and also because of these strontium isotopes, because the kids usually have higher strontium ratios because of the mother milk they are consuming. To sum up, this is an attempt to use network analysis to explore material and bioarchaeological levels of individual identity on early Neolithic cemeteries. And the material identity is constructed by the community creating the burial, and on the other hand, the biological identity or the unintentional identity is constructed based on bioarchaeological data. And so far, I think it is interesting, but I would need much more analysis to run on this, to make some sense of this. And my further ideas are to use another means of analysis, to use clustering algorithms, like hierarchical clustering or k-means. But I wanted to use network analysis because I find it easier to understand if I construct the networks. And that's all from me. Thank you for the attention. Are there any questions?
So you're bringing together a lot of different variables in this analysis, as one has to do in addressing a complicated topic.
Yes.
Are there any variables that you feel are more important in understanding all of this than others, and did you weight them in your analysis to reflect that?
Yes, this is a difficult task. I was thinking in this direction, and in the end, I decided not to weight it because it was difficult for me to decide which were more important, and I think this would only introduce my own ideas on the data, and it would be a bit deterministic, I think. So far I tried to not to weight it, but I think it would be necessary to create something more that would make more sense than this, because so far it's mostly like spaghetti monsters or something like that.
Any other questions for me?
I'm trying to form a question because I'm trying to think about this data and how you displayed it, and I think what is interesting about it is that you have clear clusters of biological data,
Yes.
and then you have this clear, what in network analysis you might call the bridging statistic of the archaeological data that is
Yes.
linking these communities of biologically distinct individuals together. And even though you're saying you don't see, I mean, you had that one cemetery where you had the children clearly grouped together, but in other ones you don't. It doesn't necessarily, in my mind, convince me that it's not showing you something. I don't know
Yeah, of
what
course.
these clusters
Yeah.
are showing you, but do you have any inclination on what these network clusters in the biological data are signaling? Is it signaling that they're eating something different? Is it signaling, like, what are those clusters, and then why might the archaeology be bridging them together?
Yeah, it's very interesting, this thing, because I didn't expect it that there would be biological clusters with archaeological thing bridging it. This is something I didn't really expect, so so far it's rather hard to think about this or to make sense out of it. And where are there clusters in the biological data? I have no idea. I think this is caused mostly by the age groups. But again, what I showed, there was the color was sex, and the age group was, or the sex, anthropological sex didn't go into the analysis. So this is but the sex is dependent on the age. But it didn't show the dependence in this way. There were males and females mixed, but the kids were different. So I'm not sure what creates this structure. Well,
That's fair. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know either, obviously,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get you to think about it, and it might be one of those things where you just have to
Yeah. Well, it shows something. I'm not sure what.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Because we have 2 more minutes until the next presentation. Okay. We have our next speaker.
Yep.
Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Kuba. The topic of my presentation is graves of war crimes in areas of Poznań, identification using remote sensing methods. this is a part of my master thesis, remote sensing methods in forensic archaeology. In this work, I will use airborne laser scanning data, archival aerial photographs, in order to identify grave pits. Here is a short plan of my presentation. It's only 19 slides, so I hope I won't bore you too much. At first, I will say something about the method, some other cases, my 2 cases of research I made, some analysis, and well, the rest. Metadata, analysis, conclusions. I had a research question. So actually, is it possible to investigate grave pits using ALS data? That was my first question, but also I'm thinking about the methodology of the data processing and the interpretation of this data. So I will use, I will try to make an attempt to show a deconstruction of data I have edited, and I think it will be helpful for me to answer the questions I raised just briefly. So the research is set kind of backwards, because I know where the grave pits are located. The Institute of National Remembrance made some excavations. They made some exhumations, and they knew the exact places where the grave pits are. So I used some remote sensing methods to try to verify if I can detect those grave pits, those features. We have here individual and mass graves. I used airborne laser scanning. It was a paid service from our national site in Poland. Why is that I use the DSM? Because I think it's a better way to edit those data, these data. In a case when we have some vegetation, other points that could be set like badly set, just not the way they should be, like ground points were misinterpreted, like for vegetation or buildings or cars. So I would like to start with a question to everyone here. Well, how do you imagine a grave? Any idea?
A rectangle?
Rectangle, yes! Obviously, this rectangle. And this is a clear example that we have a bias towards the shape and morphology of a grave pit. I personally I had this problem because I had this approach. I also was thinking that the grave is like a rectangle. It's very simple. Like it looks like, in this case, here you can see a top surface of the grave. It looks like a rectangle. It's not a soil mark. In this photograph, well, it's very hard to see, but here's collapsed earth that looks like graves. It is a cemetery from the Second World War. And also I found some graves, mass graves, that are very huge. Like there are 3 of them, 3 features. They are 25 meters long, and they are like 15 meters wide. So they were camouflaged in order to hid the bodies, so no one could really see where the graves are. I'm talking about unconscious bias. After my research, I saw eventually that there's nothing like a rectangular mark for graves. Here is the first case. It's the IPN investigation in Poznań, in Poland. Numerous single grave pits were discovered. I'm trying to analyze this DSM data. I've edited it. It's without any vegetation marks. So this part was a NKVD prison. Actually, well, I have really big problems to see here any features that could be interpreted as grave marks. So you see anything here? I can't see anything here. There's nothing. So let's move on. The second case. It's Wyspiański Street in Poznań. Here is a mass grave, 4 by 4 meters. So it's like 16 square meters. Well, in theory, it should be visible on the DSM. In theory. Do you see any grave marks? Well, there's nothing. I can't say actually there's anything here. Well, this looks suspicious, but I don't think it's like collapsed earth. It's like something above the earth. In the first and the second case, there is no clear evidence of grave pit features and no archaeology. So in this part of work, most of archaeologists would say, well, there's nothing, so it's the end of the research. But for me, I've tried to focus even more to investigate why there are no features. Why is that? Here we have some aerial photographs from 1945. You can see that this is a part of a soldier's camp, the Speclager 2 in Poznań. And 11th of August, the graves were actually dug by this time. So they killed people on the 1st of August, they hid them, well, and it's 10 days later. Here's nothing. But the IPN investigation showed that here are some single grave pits. Well, maybe the resolution of this photograph is too low, but the second case, here is Wyspiański Street again, 1945. Here's a war landscape. This is destroyed Poznań after the war, after the defense of Poznań. And Dr. Maksymilian Frąckowiak interpreted this feature, so freshly dug earth, as a mass grave. And this photo was used to set the perimeters for the excavation site. Well, and they obviously found the mass grave. So I'm going further. Now, I try to ask some questions about the ALS data. So, the metadata, the density of points is 3.94 for this area. Only 3 points. The raw cloud of points is like 11 points. So after the editing process, we have only almost 4 points. Almost 4 points. The results. So 4 points is obviously not any good resolution when you try to find features that are like 2 meters by 1. You can't see anything. Yes, and every step of data processing, it could actually decrease the number of points and the resolution. So what is also the problem? We don't have a high resolution crowd of points, so we try to use other methods. As you could see, one aerial image had some great features, and the transformed landscapes, like in the cities, are so disrupted, they are so hard to interpret. Again, DSM analysis, I don't know if you can see anything here, but here are some blank spaces on the model. I tried to edit the data and manually at the second time, just to erase the vegetation, and now I know that something that I was thinking was there above ground, a feature, it actually was just 1 point here. And the process of triangulation made it look like something about the ground. So it was rather a unwanted effect. So blank spaces. So I tried also to make some intersections here to look if the ground is like lower, but it's not. It's like on the same level as the street. I tried then to interpret what date of flight was during the laser scanning. As you can see, it's actually it's vegetation now. It's summer. Trees have leaves, and we can't actually use this data when we want to interpret or identify any grave features. So we would rather need some data that was made like winter, well, not when it's snowing and it's too cold. So I asked this question then: is it possible to study grave pits using remote sensing method? Again, and here's the plot twist: it is possible. It is possible in a work here made by this researcher Alastair Vannon. He had this few attempts to a site where were clandestine graves. Here you can see a cloud of points he edited. Its resolution is 25 centimeters. It's the resolution I have. It's like 4 points per square meter, and it's nothing here. Nothing at all. Well, he used some other data, 5 centimeters data. He had this cloud of points, which density was 416 points per square meter. His resolution was actually 4.9 centimeters. Now, you can see on the other picture that here is like a collapsed earth features. It doesn't have any at all, any shape. You can't define it. It's just collapsed earth. The summary. Yeah, as I said, the urban landscape is has a very bad resolution. You can't identify so tiny and so little features. So let me be clear. It's not I'm not criticizing LiDAR scanning. I'm criticizing the data, the resolution. The resolution is bad. The method is okay. So the graves I was looking for are not defined by the shape, by a certain shape. They have a hard definable shape. It's background, so it is really hard to try to identify them. Also, I have put some critical thinking of the parameters like X, Y, Z in my model, and it turns out that it is like 10 to 15 centimeters a margin of error. So the Z parameter is a height parameter. So if we have like 10 or 15 centimeters error of our, well, it's not an error, but it's a margin of error, right? So it actually doesn't give us almost any possibility to look for such small objects. So these objects, graves, in reality, when you go to a site with graves, their features are like non-visible, sometimes non-visible to human eye. So we need a method to look for the how to put it, for the parameters that are responsible for the height. Also, the season of laser scanning should be dependent, should depend from the vegetative period. So, no summer, no autumn. We should not make laser scanning then, and the use of archival aerial photography is actually the best method in this case. I'm working now on my own cloud of points. It has better resolution, like 16 to 18 points per square meter, and well, I'm trying again to verify if it's possible to see on this data, but it's like it's the same, like the same date, new algorithms. And I also wanted to end with one thing that there is also another margin of error when it comes to X and Y perimeters, but X and Y, you know, the length and width. So it's 40 centimeters also the margin of error. So actually that's all. Thank you for your attention, and that's all. Any questions?
Sorry, I'm just here. Have you thought about doing any work with gravity scanning? I understand as a student that might be expensive, but
it's impossible.
Well, yeah, but like if you were to look at the different density of I don't know, in the soil, like it just seems like such important research to do that.
Well, it's impossible now because those sites don't exist. They have been excavated. So
Right, okay.
I have the only traces. The last year was the mass grave, and 2 years ago was the first case. So,
But perhaps for finding new, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of war graves
yeah.
that
Well,
are
that's.
not known.
I think it's a good idea, but really, I was finding everything by myself, so
Yeah, sure.
it's really hard,
You're nine.
difficult.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
Hi, so with your research, clearly what you tried to do didn't work, and you recognize that in this particular case. But in that the resolution of your data data and the preservation and the ground conditions and vegetation conditions, et cetera, you did not see the graves you were expecting to see.
Yes,
But
I have a negative outcome.
you have a negative outcome, which is fine. This happens to all of us. And presenting negative results is important. But based on what you've learned, do you feel like you have ideas for a protocol for detecting mass graves in better preservation conditions with slightly better data? Do you feel that you now have a workflow you can apply elsewhere?
Yes, of course I have. I think I'm actually smarter now when it comes to such data, but I don't know if you know the work of Professor Włodzimierz Roczkowski from Poland. He made a work about, he called it like small features on aerial photographs. It's the same problem. Sometimes a small feature, a small object is very hard to define, even if you can use methods and document those objects. So I know how to try to use better methods or better approach to identify objects. But I don't know if I could really make a good interpretation. Well, maybe it's a bias again.
Thank you very much. I believe our next two speakers, Heather Christie and, I apologize, I cannot pronounce, Katarzyna Barucha, are not here. Is that correct? All right, so that means that we're reconvening at, or we can have a general discussion right now, or we're reconvening. So,
Let's reconvene.
all right. All right, so we will reconvene at 11, so everyone get all of the coffee you could possibly drink in an hour and 20 minutes. Great.
Verifying your presentation is always a good idea.
What does that mean? Do I press this or this? You know, do I press the right or left thing, or does something explode after that?
It's like fix it, and this is
Dismiss. I want to dismiss it. Okay. Oh wait. Okay. This is just want to see if, where can I like preview it?
Or just preview.
Like, you know, put it already on full screen. Like, I just want to see if
for
it gives.
example, this.
Okay, but I just want to see if it gives works. Yeah. Alright, that works. Okay. There was a file, right? Put all those things, right?
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. I'll just leave it over here.
Jo, jako to je asi pravda, no, to jsem tam jako nezohlednil vlastně. Já jsem to tam jakože na začátku jsem to tam takhle měl vlastně, že jakoby ty spolu úplně nesouvisí. A potom jakoby mě překvapilo, že vlastně to nevychází v těch analýzách, jakoby, že to jsou úplně spojité kategorie v podstatě. To přišlo to jakoby...
A jako určitě souhlasím s tím, že jako tam hraje prostě faktor prostě vyklad úplně nějaký.
No,
Vlastně i ty jsou vyklad úplně.
no, právě.
A to prostě je empirický věc, kterou rádi tak právě tohle musí vrstvu, to máme, musí jsou bohaté celý matek. Vlastně ty mativy bývají mnohem bohatší, to je
No, je to takový... Můžete se vracet?
Já ti nevím, no asi jo. Dělám moc
Já asi půjdu na tu válku, se máte Martin Vojta, asi to musím dopisat.
takže jsme vaši na válku, tak pojďme do války.
Tam mám dva
Just have a question, like, is it possible to keep the lights down like that here? Because actually they're mostly on and then it shines on the presentation and then it looks quite, like that it's okay, like, please don't turn on the lights.
Ah, okay, sure,
Okay,
sure,
perfect.
godzinę, to może być taka kawa. No serio.
Wiedziałem.
A to nie miało być tak prezentacji do 10 coś?
Tak, ale
No nie ma przy klasy.
oni nie przyszli.
No to...
was a bit too short.
Yeah.
But that was good.
Nie wiem, czy to chcesz przejść? Nie, on się sama.
Nie, chyba może.
No. Nie, ale dobre. Jadłaś? Ja tak po wczoraj, to tak
Aha.
nie jestem głodna. Chyba się no, prawda nie do samego końca, to są chyba w pierwszym odcinku. No, nie no, ogólnie spoko, w sensie to ja... Nie, znaczy moje koło, ale ja to też nie organizator nic, ja to raczej sobie tylko ale może to jest więc można było potańczyć, tego jedzenia też nie było. Tak same, co było na dobre, nie popatrzyłam. Całe noc. I lepszy wyczytanek to może wrażenie tylko. No taka mała sala no ale fajnie tam to remontowali, bo ogólnie jakby na dole jest taka stołówka, ona na chwilę obiad, a na górze jest... siadaj, właśnie spokojnie. Właśnie się trochę.
Właśnie ja pamiętam, dyrektor zmienił, nie wiem, czy była w Wrocławiu, na PSG.
Nie, ja byłam tylko w Olsztynie.
A, w Olsztynie. W Olsztynie bo tak pracowali.
No w Olsztynie to chyba będą mieli podziemia.
W Olsztynie to było tak, że nagłośnienie nie było w ogóle.
No.
A my z Prince'u już zbierali.
Właśnie, no ale to było w ogóle w jakiejś takiej klitce, nie wiem, jakiejś PTT-ku czy kogoś, tak mi się coś wydaje.
To było jakieś słabe. W Olsztynie było w takiej restauracji prawie takiego hotelu i jedzenie było tyle, że pamiętam, stałem taki kubek i lata nie studię, ale pamiętam, że dostaliśmy i wiesz, wszystko, kurczę, jakieś kanapeczki, coś tam, jedzenia było tak dużo. Aj, dawne czasy.
No ale nie no, taka organizacja tylko kosztuje
Kosztuje,
trochę
tak.
hajsu i z tymi sponsorami, no wiadomo, z roku na rok jest coraz gorzej, wszyscy już są zmęczeni tym, że się gdzieś jeździ i coś organizuje.
Szczególnie, że w okazji jest tak. Jesz czysteczka?
Chciałam do tego chłopaka stosującego się zagadać.
A, dobra. Do chłopaka tego, wiesz, taki był... To ja cię znajdę może zaraz.
No tak, tak.
Taki był ten, co mówił o telewizji. On tak bardzo był... był... Gdzie już pani robił, nie wiem,
No,
no.
no, Poznanie.
A spotkanie jest to właśnie.
Tak, no.
Tak, normalnie też nie strasznie się tak... Wiesz...
Stresuje.
Że się stresuje. Ale w fajnej prezentacji nie jest to, tylko... Wiesz, było troszkę tak... Na głowie.
Znaczy, właśnie, bo ja to poznałam w pierwszy dzień, no w ogóle to bardzo rzadko tutaj bywam, ale wpadłam jakoś i faktycznie chciałam się na jakiś referat, to szukam jakiś referat, bo jak znaleźliśmy się na jednej sali jakiejś tam sztucznej inteligencji, czy coś. No i wtedy bardzo klikał tą prezentację, że coś tam sobie robi. Ale szkoda, że faktycznie z takich to się nie da nic za bardzo uzyskać.
No tak, znaczy... Tak... Ktoś tak razem nie ma szans.
No,
tak...
no rozdzielczość
Rozdzielczość nie tej jeszcze... No wiesz, nie wiem, cały tutaj odkopane, 100 lat temu zakopane i wyrosną te drzewa, to tak...
No, nie no, bo podobno, że sobie pomysł, to też mi nie skłamała, ale jak masz podczerwień i tak dalej, no to w ogóle jak ty masz spektralne, to sobie analizujesz na przykład drzewa, to podobno inaczej one wyglądają, jak właśnie rosną na jakichś tam grobach, inaczej wyglądają, że rosną na czymś tam.
Myślałem, że jest...
No, ale to
To inne podejście, bo po prostu chciałyby... Tak.
po prostu wykryć już na obrazie,
Cztery
nie?
kilometry i mieć inne.
No, no.
Może las, Boże, lasy tak.
No.
Czy robi? Nie robi tylko z tłumików.
No, z tego Phoenix'a, tak. To trzeba. Znaczy, nie, bo prawda jest taka, że na przykład ja mieszkam na południu jeszcze Polski, w tym bardziej koło gór i u nas są takie grody jakieś średniowieczne. No i moja mama taka jest zajarana, to była, ona tam uczy przyrody w szkole i ona mówi, że kurczę, że jej się tak właśnie wydaje, że kiedyś czytała jakieś coś tam, że dawna osada gdzieś tam była. Ja mówię, no to dobrze, to można odpalić geoportal. No, odpaliliśmy geoportal i faktycznie na warstwie jakieś tam cieniowania, coś tam z jakichś tam izometrycznych rzeczy, takich różnych, no to wrzucili i wiadomo, pozbyli się tam drzew tego wszystkiego i faktycznie normalnie są zarysowania i widać,
no,
nie?
no to jest...
Więc kurde, sobie myślę, że no całkiem spoko.
Znaczy to jest fajne właśnie tak sobie poodkrywać.
No.
Teraz miałem okazję pierwszy raz chodzić z tym, z używaczem detali. I to jest strasznie fajne uczucie, jak coś robisz z Epika.
No.
I jestem za jakiś nabój zrobiłem już
No.
tak wiesz, po prostu po ziemi, nie? Centymetr.
Nie no, bo teraz jest no, duży postęp z tym wszystkim, aczkolwiek z drugiej strony na przykład no, te georadary, no to nie wiem, ja jak potem widzę ten taki szum czy coś, myślę, tak patrzę sobie, myślę, no nie wiem czy tam coś jest, czy nie jest, no ale niektórzy jak się tam znają, no to ponoć właśnie wiedzą jakieś takie różne
No
rzeczy.
właśnie kwestia chyba znajomości tego wszystkiego, nie? No właśnie.
Więc to jest teoretycznie potężne narzędzie i tak właśnie dla tych archeologów lubię też, ale mam takie wrażenie, że jakby narzędzia są, a z używaniem tego no to już różnie.
Różnie, tak. Znaczy też ludzie mają takie podejście bardzo dobrze. To jest tak, że nawet na takie ludzie mają takie podejście, że na takich zgodzeniem poszło, że wśród takich jak ja mam podejście takie czysto, wiesz, technokratyczne i informatyczne, też to jest inaczej pojmowane i inaczej rozumiemy jakby świat niż na innych. Nie? I to jest też tak, że jakoś trzeba się dogadać.
Ale to w ogóle w sumie już na początku od tempa pracy, czy jakieś takie rzeczy, no nie wiem, ja to sobie myślę, że faktycznie siadamy materiał, opracowujemy coś tam dalej. A tam ktoś tak rozwleka, to jest jakieś spotkanie, to jest jakieś ustalenie, coś tam.
No tak.
To jest takie, wiecie, to męczy i ja mówię, to dobrze, to konkretnie chcecie, nie? To może tak, a może tak.
Rozmawiamy temat.
No właśnie, tak, to tak, spotkamy się na kawkę, coś tam, no nie mam czasu. Jakiś konkret, no ale właśnie to jest taka różnica. A z drugiej strony, no to oni też mają po prostu, no tak wpadają sobie na różne pomysły, tutaj kogoś coś tam, bo mają bardziej taki otwarty umysł społeczny, nie?
No
Na
właśnie,
ludzi, na...
też szerszy ogląd jakiś.
No, i spisanie tych wszystkich wniosków, że na przykład czy są badania podstawowe, to nie archeolodzy dostają grant, bo tak jakby sensowości takich badań się nie naliwia. Po prostu to jest podstawowe, nie? No to wiesz, no a u nas ciężko jest myśleć coś w geodezji takich pod, czy zaraz ktoś mi powie, no to już było, no to nic z tego. Teraz okej, no informatyka wchodzi, ale no jakby właśnie, no gdzie tu jest teraz trochę geodezji,
No właśnie,
gdzie
to
tu
jest
informatyka,
granica.
no bo tak samo jak na okazji byliśmy, no i ja tam miałam akurat poster, coś podobnego jak na IGX-a, i tylko właśnie skończyliśmy i tam sobie wycieczkę zrobiliśmy, no i był też Lublin, który właśnie ma współpracę z tymi z AGF-u, z chłopakami z elektroniki, czy z jakiegoś takiego, no i że oni mi to skonsumowali, to tam. No i jakby fajnie, tylko potem właśnie zostaje to pytanie, no to ile tego jest jakby, tak, przewinienia tego, że jesteś geodytą i próbujesz jakieś różne rzeczy, na ile jest tego, że faktycznie ktoś ci zrobi tu. No i to jest fajne, no bo my na przykład tu zrobiliśmy, że tam spędziliśmy trochę czasu, było trzeba zapytać kumpla informatyka i poprosić, żeby na to spojrzał. No ale właśnie z drugiej strony no to można tak rozparcelować każdą pracę, czyli ty masz taki geodezyjny pomysł, ktoś ci tutaj napisze jakiś algorytm, ktoś ci będzie testował. No i to jest takie ciężko potem jest to porównywać. Jak byłam też w komisji na OKSG, to ja nie wiedziałam, co mam na przykład wybrać, bo ja nie wiem, czy ktoś jak analizuje jakieś właśnie telewizyjne zdjęcia w taki sposób, czy tu jakiś algorytm, to czy to jest jakiś progres, czy to już jest i tylko ktoś to sprawdza.
No właśnie, czyli nie, że to jest nikt nie ma wiedzy na każdy temat.
No.
Tak, a tyle osób myśli, 7 miliardów ludzi na świecie i to jest tak, że każdy kmini coś i naprawdę ciężko jest znaleźć taki temat, że o, nie było nigdy na świecie.
No i że właśnie inni ludzie też mogą dostrzec jakoś tam unikatów z tego.
Tak. No to jest prawda, to jest dosyć problematyczna sprawa. Będę sobie jeszcze kawę zrobić, mi się małpa.
No ja sobie właśnie będę wysypać kawkę,
Już spokój.
No.
Dobrze, pójdź tam, 15 minut.
No ja tylko nie mam 15 minut. Nie, no to ja jakoś tam nie już po prostu się pogodziłam z tym, że muszę prezentację przeczytać z karteczki. Tylko bardzo się skupić na tym, jak pani zadawać pytania, a ja po prostu nie zrozumiem.
No to pani mówi kiedyś co nie inaczej.
Musiała
bardziej
sprawdzić.
no właśnie.
No to było, ja po prostu czasami to nie wiem, myślę, że użyję jakieś słuchawki, tak to że jest coś, co?
Tak, ale ja też nie rozumiałem, bo na przykład też łatwo jest się dogadać. Nie, na tym myślę, że to spoko. Dobrze, idę po kawkę, przeszkadzam. To zgodzimy się na prezentację.
każdym razem, każdego dnia, zawsze na tym samym stopniu się wywalam. Usunę, jeszcze mi ktoś ukradnie. I co wtedy? Jezu, gdzie tu jest kosz? Nie ma kosza? Jest kosz. O, teraz widzę, co macie w koszu.
Czyli to jest premedytacja?
Ale wstyd.
Pomyśleli o wszystkim.
Wszystko widziałem, teraz opowiem innym. Sesja dopiero się zaczyna o...
Z tego co zrozumiałam po 11, no.
Była to długa przerwa.
No to była bardzo długa przerwa.
A może chociaż więcej osób przyjdzie, bo tak rano tak mało,
No
wczoraj
jeszcze
było
po tej
więcej.
imprezie, wczoraj była ta impreza, to może też lepiej.
Jak było, bo mnie nie było?
Nie wiem, bo mnie też nie było.
Jednak 120 za taką imprezę to
właśnie.
trochę przesadzone.
Za darmo i też nie poszłam też w sumie.
To dobrze, to nie żałuję.
strasznie duży ten liczby. No i bo to nie jest tak, że daje nie wiem, kierunek albo na wydział albo coś w tym stylu, tylko jakby Akademia Górniczo-Hutnicza ma 2 piony, górniczy i hutniczy i na ten górniczy cały jest stypendium właśnie za szkolenie osiągnięcia, no i
Jeszcze jestem ciekawy, jest Akademia Górniczo-Hutnicza, ale gdzie jest informatyka na przykład?
gdzie jest lepszy plan, gdzie jest ten humanistyczny, bo też
A gdzie jest administracja?